start practicing with a knife?
Well, my beginning, I was 16, roughly, 15, almost 16. I started Filipino martial arts that period. So this is my introduction to the knife, roughly that age.
Why have you chosen exactly a knife as a form of practice?
Well, at that period, it was something new as martial arts. I mean, I'm Italian. I used to grow up in Italy, and it's quite common as culture. We have a knife culture. Every regions in Italy has its own style, or this kind of culture is part of us. So it's quite common that some Italians have the knife in the pocket daily. And it was a good thing for me to discover Filipino martial arts, and this kind of style could help me to handle this kind of situation, hoping.
How many years have you been practicing, and what was the reason you have started doing it?
I started practicing martial arts when I was 4. And this is my passion since I'm very young. I started to practice the knife, as I said before, when I was 16. Actually, I'm 38, so it's a bit long. The reason why is that I think that for a man, it's very important to know how to preserve his life and the life of his relatives, his family, his friends. So a method that can help you, I think, is a good thing.
Why did you decide to teach others?
Arrive a moment in life when you are able to pass this step, like you become a teacher. You feel a sort of responsibility. I mean, you feel responsible about what you know. You find the moment and you say, okay, it's the time to share this knowledge and to help people that maybe a day can be attacked by a knife. So it's quite of a sort of responsibility to share.
Would you mind telling more about the system that you teach?
During my career, I had really different martial arts teachers. I had Filipinos and non-Filipinos. Actually, my last teacher is a Filipino, and he has a very good knife system, which is a binirkalis, which is a blend of Illustrissimo and Silat. Our system is quite simple and quite direct. I mean, we don't have so much time for fancy stuff in a real aggression. So we try to use techniques that match with the human instinct, because it's a very important point, and in the same time, they should match with the scenario that we are going to face in a real fighting situation.
Would you mind telling, is there any logical model in your system?
Yes. There is a procedure, a learning procedure. In the beginning, as students, when they come to learn for the first time, we give him the time to learn without any pressure. I mean that there is a memory process muscle, which it requires us bit of time to learn the proper movement. Once the movement is acquired, in this case, the student is going to test the same movements but under pressure. Under pressure means that full speed, full power. Of course, it's not immediately, but for example, you start to experiment the technique under pressure, small, low intensity, and then the intensity, once you get comfortable, will increase until we reach the full speed and full power, of course, with all the gears, all the protection that we should always work in a safe way.
Are there any main elements that you can describe us when you prepare a person, when you train a person?
I focus the training on a human instinct reaction. The student should learn and face his own emotion during the fight. Of course, we will never reproduce exactly what is going to do in a real fight attack, but we try through the sparring to create some scenario where some emotion will arise. In this situation, you should be able to recognize the emotion and to handle it, and to go with it. And the technique should match with this kind of emotions. Some techniques are aggressive, some techniques are passive, some techniques are more active than others. There is not a better techniques. The best of the techniques is the one that match in function of the emotion you're living in that particular moment. So the capacity of handle a bad situation is that you recognize the emotional state you are living in that particular moment and the condition that you had during your training. They will match together, and then hopefully you will have a good result, because the knife is a really delicate topic. And a lot of people, they teach techniques, well, all looks good because there is a collaborative partner between them. The techniques should be tested against a non-collaborative partner. The feeder is good in the beginning, as I said before, for the process of learning. Once the technique is acquired, the technique should be tested against a non-collaborative one.
Why do you think it happens that when a person trains with a knife for several years, like 2 or 3 years, in a sport place, and then when he comes to real life situation, he just runs away? Why this happens?
Yeah, that's the thing I was telling you before. If your training doesn't propose you real street scenario, if your training doesn't make you live your emotions, and if your training doesn't try to put you in a real fighting situation, the day that these scenarios, the street aggression, will happen to you, then you will freeze, you will get scared. And even, I'm telling you, even you are going to train properly, even you are going to train with the best equipment, even you are going to train with the best scenario, as I mentioned it, it's not a guarantee. Because we are all human beings. And this is a really scary stuff. So there is a gym reality and a street reality. We try to make it match, to make it, get close to understand better. But I have to be honest with you. Be a defense yourself against a knife. I think you get lucky if you have a chance on 10 that you will survive.
Can we associate your system with some type of an animal or a bird?
We are human beings, and we have an animal side, of course. The difference between us and the animals that we have a developed brain. Our brain is much more developed. Everybody's know that. Take comparison about what is going in the animal kingdoms during their fightings can be inspiring. And this animal instinct is part of us, it belongs to us. Sometimes we can take example like a lion is going to catch his victim, or this kind of stuff, like an eagle, as you said. But I retain myself as a human being, and I try to develop our human instinct, which sometimes correspond with the animal instincts. Sometimes is lower, sometimes is higher. Can be a good example sometimes to explain the techniques, but I'm not fixed to that.
Would you mind telling if there's a tactic and strategy in your system?
Yeah, like all the system, there is a tactic, a strategies. We should be able to recognize the dangers that before the dangers show up. I mean, when we are in the street, we have to be able to check what is going on around us. That's the best of the strategy. The best of the fighter is the one that is able to recognize it before that show up and try to avoid it. Sometimes we can do it, sometimes we can't do that. So if we are able to recognize a bad situation and we train for that, this is a preventive method which is really good. Sometimes when we are under ambush, when we don't see the enemies come, I'm sorry, but that's very quite tough situation. So as human beings, we like to have all, for any question, all answers. Well, I don't think we have all the answer all the time. We try to have it.
Do you think it is important for one to have a psychological preparation before he starts practicing with a knife?
Not everybody can do it before starting, but at least it is good to do while you are practicing. The psychological side must be a part of the training. The training should be divided in technique, performance. I mean, the students should be able to give performance, should work on his own attributes: force, speed, timing, endurance, cardio, whatever. The technique itself is not enough. To make it work, need performance. So you must be a good athlete somehow. And then there is the third aspect, which is the most relevant, which is your emotions, which is if you get ready, what we call mindset. Well, is neglected in most of the styles. I don't want to say most of the styles, but in a lot of styles is neglected. A lot of people focus on make collection of techniques instead to focus on the human single being that is going to face that situation. So through the real scenarios training, we try to work on this psychological side.
What kind of knife do you prefer in your training practice?
To make the people comfortable, we can start with a regular rubber knife. Okay. Then we can pass to a wooden one or aluminum one. In function of the protection, the gear that people have, but as we are going to practice full speed and full power, people should be protected in a proper way to work safely. So any kind of knife that allows you to work in a realistic way and is the welcome one.
You know, nowadays there are a lot of people that started teaching this knife fighting. Why do you think? I mean, what could be the reason of it?
In FMA, in other styles, often there is a trend. It's the trend of the moment. Some people, some teachers are honest and are really qualified and they take it really seriously and they share really the knowledge that they have to do, to share, and they are really good teachers. But I can tell you are very few on the market. And others are just following as a bandwagon this trend. Actually, sadly, we have a lot of terrorism attack. So some people take advantage of this, even they are not really qualified, showing useless technique or quite dangerous technique just to make money. And I'm sorry to say that, but this is a sad reality.
There are a lot of different systems like Italian and Spanish and others. So what do you think? What is the advantage of your system over the other ones?
I don't believe there is a superior system. I only just can suggest that there are functional systems or less functional systems. My personal opinion is that it doesn't matter what you practice, it's the way you practice that make you the difference. The first thing that I will discard all the techniques that are longer of the attack is coming. I'll give you an example. If the attack is coming one speed, let's say speed 1, to be successful, your defense should be shorter. So it should be less than 1. So when I see all the defenses that is longer or equal length of the attack, I start to have some doubts. And the second thing is not really technique, is when you are able to apply the technique, which is called timing. Okay? It can be a slap, it can be a punch, it can be a stab, it can be a kick. It doesn't matter. It's when you apply it. And then it should be a proper technique. I mean, a Ferrari, which is one of the best cars, in a jungle is useless. And a kayak in a city is useless too. Each technique should be in its own right place and applied in the right time. So once you understand that, you are not going to discuss anymore this style is better than the other one, but it's all about performance, timing, measure, and of course, as I said, the defense should be shorter.
You know, there is a notion such as a master of martial arts. Do you think there are any criteria according to which one can determine whether a person is a master or not?
I know that a lot of people will not be agree what I'm going to say. There is no knife masters. There is just survivors.
Regarding about methodology, you know, there are different types of knives, and do you have one methodology for all, or are there different methods of teaching a work with separate knife?
Some knives are longer than others, so this can compromise some techniques. So there are some really pocket knife, very small, and other are really a dagger, really longer. The techniques could be and is almost the same, but in this situation, you should adapt yourself in function of the length of the knife.
In your opinion, do you think a knife has a future in 21st century?
I hope so. I hope so for a simple reason. Knife is a weapon which is very easy to conceal. It's a very silent weapon. It doesn't make noise. And is a killing weapon. So, and as we can notice in the news, in this crazy world we are living today, everybody are using for killing the knife often and more often, even more than a gun sometimes. So I hope that it will be part of the training. It doesn't matter the martial arts. But one thing that I hope also, that we will have in the future more qualified knife instructors. I use the term instructors and not masters because it's just trying to tell you, hopefully, that it's going to address you to save yourself in a good way. But as I said, there is no masters. We try just to survive.
In your opinion, why a person would desire and why would he go and start learning this knife fighting technique?
Well, the person that decides to learn this kind of weapon, I think they felt the dangers nowadays. I mean, they watch the TV or they heard stories, or maybe they saw something in their city where they live, and they said, maybe a day can happen to me. And I think they won't be ready to face this kind of aggression.
What would you recommend to people that are going to start or that want to train with a knife?
Well, the thing is that some people are able to judge what they see immediately, and other people not. And they just believe what they see. And it is not their fault, of course. My suggestion is that we have a human instinct, that tell us if we are going to do it, what we are going to do, we feel if it's right or wrong, especially when we talk about survival. So when your teacher is showing you something, your instinct somehow, some way is going to tell you, oh, that's a good thing, or I'm not sure we're going to apply that. This is the first sensation. And second, they should find some styles or club where they can practice under pressure. Means that they can test themselves, they can prove to themselves what they are able to do, how they will react, if they are able to react properly or not. So, if there is not this kind of test during the training, I advise to find for another one, look for another one.
Bien, plaque-le avec les genoux, plaque-le, voilà. Attention sur la tête. Stop.